You want to tell him or you want me to tell him?
You're good. I already know.
There you go.
Yeah, I already know. How y'all doing tonight? Welcome,
Good.
everybody. Should still be good.
We supposed to do something here? Are we starting the show? What are we doing?
There we go. No, I had YouTube playing in the background because I was linking our links to link the links when you're supposed to be linking your links.
LinkedIn.
Don't
Yeah.
do that, or I'll get fired again.
I mean, you can just get fired regardless. Anyways, how are we doing? How's the week been? Welcome, everyone. Episode 359. We're going to be talking about Dyson spheres, stellar engines, and the black hole bomb. You're going to want to stay tuned and stick to the goodness that is this uncanny earth. As always, I have my two co-hosts in this conglomerate, Spider, and of course, Steven. Steven looked like a fresh-faced 25-year-old over there. How are you doing, buddy? How you doing? Good?
Yep.
Spider, why do you look half dead?
Oh, that's usual. That's no different from any day.
You're a little paler
Most
than
of the time.
you're wearing like t-shirt.
Do I not usually wear a shirt?
You do not wear, you don't usually wear a t-shirt. You don't.
It's
usually
warm. It's warm right now. It's the heat increased by quite a bit. I got the window open a smidge over there. It's raining, so you might actually hear some storm stuff going on. Because
Oh, sweet! I can fall asleep during the show. Awesome, love
Yeah.
it. Let's keep that going, gentlemen. How have you been? How has the last week treated you all?
Busy here.
yeah, we've had a lot going on. There's been a lot of promo, a lot of different things going on with the overall everything that we do. So next week we will have a promo video of some kind for our sponsor W, so I don't have to keep bringing it up. But if you want some energy drink, go to w.gg and you can get yourself some energy drink. The video will be nicer than that because I'm not.
I hope so. What was that?
I'm trying to make sure I keep it mentioned
Listen,
every time, and
you
I'm horrible
sound like
at it.
You
So.
sound like an AI. You're like WGG go now energy drink.
Because I don't like to sound rehearsed, and if I do these things, I got to sound rehearsed, and I hate it. So I'm gonna make a video for it, so I don't got to do that. So it'll be more exciting, and maybe you would rush out.
There was zero.
Go
I
get
was
your
not excited.
dummy.
Get your
There you go. How's that for exciting?
It's a little too
W
exciting. Tone it down a notch,
Oh, okay.
Skid Row. Tone it down.
All
Get W.
Are you gonna be like? Is this one of those things where you say it throughout the show? They give you like a nickel.
No. I think we just have to
Time.
make sure that people know that we're sponsored, and that's I have to talk to
Right.
them a little bit and see if I can work out a good marketing plan and all that good stuff because I got ideas.
Yeah, those are terrifying. Anyways, welcome to episode 359. We're talking about spatial tech, the kind that is in science fiction books. And the earliest science fiction book was 1937 by Olaf Stapledon, and that was called Star Maker, and that was the very first science fiction book that talked about a Dyson sphere. Now, before we get in and delve into this fantastic topic we're going to be speaking on tonight, gentlemen, what do you know about Dyson spheres? And I'm not talking about the vacuum cleaners, because if you say the vacuum cleaner, you suck. So, let's start with Spider over there. Spider, what are your thoughts, feelings, emotions?
Well, I'm not really happy with that pun you just did, but moving on. We have talked a little bit about Dyson spheres, and I've read more than one fairly decent novel involving Dyson spheres and similar technology, and a few that have stellar engines. So I'm looking forward to hearing some new stuff about that and getting into some nitty gritty. And I have not heard about black hole bombs. I can kind of imagine what they might be all about, but I have not heard specifically about that. So I'm looking forward to that. But as far as the other two, pretty well versed in how that stuff works, and I am looking forward to getting into the details as we continue.
Steven the Stallion, what do you think?
Yes. I think it's very interesting to try to build something to harness the power of a star like that. And it is very important on our step towards becoming a better civilization in the astronomical scale by being able to harness the power of one of our stars, such as the sun. So I'm very curious to see how that would work in the real world, because as it happens right now, I don't really have much faith in the intelligence of humanity these days. And I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you for your wise words of wisdom. Thank you. So but it's fair to say we all know, I would say more than the average person. I feel like in levels of like, because this is my area of expertise. I love talking about it. I love the mechanics behind it. And I feel like we're probably the only three people that, I don't know, you see so many Bigfoot things, you see so many ghost things, but you don't see a lot of this spectrum involving itself in the paranormal. Maybe when they talk about UFOs, but they only mention that when they're discussing what they think are Dyson spheres out in the universe due to dim stars. So supposedly they figured out a natural reason for that, but I still think the concept of a Dyson sphere is. So, as we're going to see in tonight's episode of This Uncanny Earth, we'll be discussing Dyson spheres, stellar engines, and of course, the black hole bomb, and more into our foray here on a path that very few understand. There's a lot of math to this, but I did y'all a solid and I didn't include any of the math. So, we went ahead and
I'm sure it hurts your soul to do that.
it did. It killed me a little bit inside, but I will soldier on. All right. So, as previously mentioned before about Olaf Stapleton in his book, Star Maker. After that, another man named Dyson Freeman, or Freeman Dyson, I messed that up nicely. Freeman Dyson in 1960 came up with the theory of a Dyson sphere. Now, a lot of people wondered, well, how does it work? Right. Well, the sphere works by a giant casing over the star. Now, what it would do is it would then collect the energy from that star and then be beamed back to either an orbital station or a place here on the Earth. Now, all of that sounds nice in theory. However, in practice, it is a virtual nightmare. Dyson spheres, while pulling all of that, still have to obey certain laws, certain rules, thermodynamics being one of them, especially involving heat, gravity. If that thing gets tilted a little bit, guess what happens? The whole thing's going to collapse on itself. Then it's just going to get sucked into the star.
Would it make a black hole, though?
What'd you say?
Would it make a black hole?
Not enough. Not enough.
Okay.
Mass.
Yeah, not enough energy either in that, because it's just burning up. You're just burning up material. So what that would do is then it would pull the energy from the star, but then redirect it to Earth to be harnessed. We would harness it in some form or fashion, and the sphere would collect solar energy via satellites. Electricity then powers the microwave transmitters. Phased array antennas would then send a coherent beam. Earth would receive the beam using giant rectifying antennas. So these giant antennas, as it were, would be how they would in fact be able to beam that energy around. And then you just convert the microwaves into electricity. Through a more realistic setup, like I said, would probably involve an orbital structure. Now, our biggest problem here, let me ask you guys, if you're working on something like this, what do you think are going to be some of the biggest problems you're going to face to create something like this? Steven, you go first. What do you give me something that you think is going to be a hurdle in creating something like this?
Being able to communicate with the AI that's controlling the drones while they're still out in space that far away, like the satellites.
And you bring up a good point, because you'd have to have self-replicating units. You'd have to have self-replicating bots to be able to fix any repairs or problems that would occur on said Dyson sphere. Spider, yourself, what do you think is going to be one of the biggest problems in this?
Stability. Just the very beginning part of it, before you even get into anything about the structure that you're going to put around it, anything that you are going to be trying to do to contain it has to be able to be keeping it stable to begin with, because it's a star. It's going through its reactions. It's stars go through their natural lifespan. They eventually end as white, brown dwarfs, etc., and so on and so forth. And you have to have a way to contain all of that and keep it stable for either an indefinite period of time, or for at least long enough that once it starts getting towards the end of that cycle, you can dismantle things, move your civilization, and move on to another one. And that's, while it's the most obvious one to me, it's also one of the most difficult, I think, because it containing that much energy to begin with and keeping it from acting adversely while you have it contained is definitely going to be a trick. And you have to understand all the various math involved in why the chemical reactions are doing what they're doing, how often they do what they're doing, how much energy is going to be put out, if there's a spike, if there's a flare, all these different things that are going to happen. So stability would be the primary thing I would look at first if it was me.
So I like both of your trains of thought on this. However, in my opinion involving all this, I think your logistics are the biggest problem to overcome. First of all, you're going to need material, and the amount of material you need is about the size of a planet to construct a Dyson sphere. The closest planet being to the sun is Mercury. So we dismantle Mercury, feed it to become this Dyson sphere. Now, once again, the biggest problem, like I said, to me, is the materials that you need to actually create the sphere. You can't just be lollygagging. It's going to take more material than we have here on Earth. Not only that, you're going to need advanced scientific equipment. You're going to need advanced energy sources. You're going to have to get some dark matter, something involved, or a material that is super light. Now, the sun encapsulation was kind of an erroneous one, and they decided to go with something called a Dyson swarm. Now, a Dyson swarm is something that actually encapsulates the sun and doesn't run into the same problems as drift or material stress, both of which could be disastrous for a Dyson sphere. Because if it drifts by a small margin, and I mean a small margin, because everything has to be perfect, you can't have a lot of room for error. If it drifts a small margin, you're going to the sun. Then there goes your energy. How many grids does that shut down? Because if you're no longer using power plants here, if you fully switched over, guess what? There goes your whole civilization. So I think in that regard, dealing with that, logistics is a nightmare for one, waste heat being the other, because that's a big problem in space. There's no cooling atmosphere in space. So you can't really do anything with that heat and its radiation. So there that goes. Of course, communication delays, meteors, brutal solar events make Dyson spheres a very tough task to undertake. And not to mention, I think we don't talk about this enough. Maybe it's because of just because we're conditioned not to, but think about the politics. Think about the political landscape. How does that change? How does our political landscape change if one nation, without getting too deep into this, decides that they want to start constructing a Dyson sphere?
It already happened.
What
It
do
just
we
hasn't
do
been
with
made
that?
public.
What do we do with that, Spider? What do you think?
To be fair, a single nation, regardless of size or materials or money, can't maintain something like that on its own. This is a global project. There's too much
Wait.
involved with it.
Wait. You're acting like we're already working on it. I'm talking about the before stages of this,
Right.
where a civilization says, "Hey, I want to build a Dyson sphere. The country wants to do it. Let's go out into space and do it."
I think
Okay.
we
won't
are
be able
working
to.
on it.
Where does that sit on the political landscape? I'm not saying they already are out there building it now and we just happen to look out the window. I'm saying in the pre-stages of something of this magnitude, where does it go?
It doesn't, because they wouldn't be able to. Because again, it would have to be a global project. So if one nation thinks, "Oh, we're going to do it," they're going to run into the problems leading up to it that tells them, "Well, we're going to need to get these resources from this company and country, etc. We're going to need resources from these people over here, these people," which means we have to get along with all these people. Now, if you're already a country,
or it's taken by force.
There you go. That's what I was thinking.
which is still not feasible because just getting the material doesn't give you the manpower. Because even again,
and you're not wrong. However,
you take
you can
soldiers
find the
in
manpower.
war.
If you're taking over something, you could find the manpower.
To take the materials, sure, but to build the thing, to get everything rolling, no, it's not going to happen. An individual country
Oh, no.
is not going to be able to do it, regardless of Steven's very strong opinions of it right now. It's just not going to happen because, again, even individual countries
Gotta think.
have their infighting over where the money is going, where the materials
course.
are going, where this is going. To get everyone to agree first in one country is enough of a difficulty. And the only countries who have the resources to do this kind of thing are countries that are already kind of divided with themselves. Countries that are singular, that have like one government that's like, no, this is how we do things. It's no other way. They're smaller. They're too small to prepare for something like this, unless they ally with one of the big ones. And if they ally with one of the big ones, you run into, again, too many voices involved, too many opinions, too many people pushing and pulling. It has to be a united global effort to even get the thing off the planning stages and get it to where it's anywhere feasible.
I would throw a caveat in that by saying it depends the energy source. It depends the energy source, my friend. If the energy source is light and stable, they really don't need nobody else. I'm not saying we are all talking
Right.
hypotheticals here, mind you. Okay, it's not like nobody's out there doing it. All right, people.
Here's the thing about that.
No matter if Steven's very strong opinions over there, I don't see it. Like, I just don't see it happening.
If one last thing to throw out there to kind of rebut that is that if we had the energy source that you're talking about, we wouldn't necessarily need the star. So we wouldn't need to build a thing to begin with.
Unless that energy source is that stepping stone to get to the star.
I think you're getting into, at that point, I think we're getting into quibbling and getting into minor points.
But I think it all fits into the narrative of what happens if one nation has the ability to make that happen. I'm proposing the what if factor, not the whole it can't happen, because a lot of the stuff is theory anyways. It's not, there's no real Dyson spheres out there, at least in our neck of the woods.
Except for maybe the moon.
Which is made of cheese, as everyone knows.
Yes, and hollow.
Anyway,
not cheese, but it is hollow. That's a fact.
But it depends on which way we want to go with the discussion. If we want to go in the discussion of purely just absolute theoretical, then we can imagine a nation that has enough muscle and is united enough to manage to do that.
Interesting.
If we're talking about a mirror of what we have now as a basis,
yes,
then I think I'm correct there. However, again, if we move it strictly theoretical and we go to a place where somebody has a clear advantage in every way and they're a united nation, not United Nations as in what it is, there. I'm using the term as a generic rather than a title.
I'm not saying nothing. All right, I'm not.
But that's, again, if we're going purely like that, then sure, I can concede your point in that aspect. If we're basing it on current reality, then I have to be against.
Well, no, to be fair, this isn't something that could ever happen in our lifetimes, our children's lifetimes, or their children's lifetimes. This would take a very long time. I just propose the political aspect because people don't think about that. They don't think about somebody having those resources and saying, hey, let's work together. But the greed of man says, no, we're just going to take them and then we'll just have all the resources we want. Not saying it couldn't happen, but I'm just saying it's something to think about when you start having discussions about building something of this magnitude. And you're right. It has to be a global front or it'll tear itself apart because you have to have a lot of trust in a lot of different people.
Now, with all that being said, that's my position. I know already that Steven has a completely different position from me. So let him have it. What do we got?
What do you got, Steven? Here we go.
Spider's position, his main concern with this seems to be people not being able to agree and people not being able to, work together. But if I don't know, some sort of dictator or world leader of some sort was able to amass enough power to overtake another country, then they could take the citizens of that other country and enslave them to force them into slave labor, almost kind of like what some people believe the ancient Egyptians did to build the pyramids. And my point being that we've had many times in history where people have taken over another area or geographical location and taken the citizens into slave labor and used their soldiers because rather than wanting to die or kill each other, the soldiers actually surrendered and waved the white flag, and as a result those
Fair enough.
workers or soldiers were added to the workforce, which
Fair
would
enough.
allow them to build whatever. And if your choices are die or be slave labor, well, not many people would choose to die like me.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. So, where do you think that puts us on the political landscape? If the ability to do this
Mhm.
is made public worldwide, where do you think it lands us in the political realm?
It's
Do
going
we
to get
have to? Do we have to work together?
No, we don't have to, but
Okay.
that's the main goal is either we can choose to work together in one timeline, or if we decide not to work together, that goes to the dark timeline where corporations rule everything like Cyberpunk 2077 and everyone starts a world war like Fallout 4 and we end up in hundreds of years of endless war because everyone is so argumentative and petty that they can't be bothered to unite for the greater good of humanity, and we end up with the one world government.
That's a. I mean, I don't. How do I put it? There's no option. If the ability to do something like this is manifested, it can't be. It cannot be created any other way than a uniting of the planet. It's impossible because there are going to be resources that are needed from the United States. There's going to be resources that are needed from Russia,
And
Africa, Asia. You can't take over that. At some point, you're
that's
going to
what's happening in Antarctica.
maybe, maybe Antarctica is a hot spot for that. Who knows? Nobody knows. We can guess until the sun comes up. Nobody
Not
has any
to
They
definitive.
have
not to
technology.
digress too far from the actual conversation
No,
here,
please.
but just to make a quick point that if we mean to do anything with space on any meaningful level, then a one world government is inevitable. And
Yes, agreed.
I'm not saying Illuminati's level. I'm not
No,
saying
we're saying
that we
Mass Effect
eliminate
level.
all. Yeah,
No,
not like
we're saying Mass
eliminating
Effect
different
level.
countries as what they are, not
No.
eliminating sovereign borders, but just saying eventually everyone would have
Yes.
to come together in a
Yeah.
real,
Yes. Especially
better than
in a
what we have now.
in a galactic civilization where you might meet other galactic civilizations, you have no other option.
And people have to stop being racist about each other's different skin colors and cultural beliefs too.
I don't disagree with you. So like I said, the other purported aspect of this is called a Dyson swarm. And that is more made up of a plethora of gigantic satellites, just large satellites with habitats, solar collectors, factories that would surround the star and capture a large portion of this energy output. And so you don't have it encapsulating. You don't have to worry about it collapsing in on itself. It would basically operate by utilizing giant, I'm not sure I get this right, voltaic. There it is.
Photovoltaic.
Photovoltaic arrays or thermal power systems. The swarm's ideal location would be to place collectors near or inside the orbit of, you guessed it, Mercury. Now, asteroid mining, robotic factories, self-replication, as I discussed prior and previous, and exponential growth are part and parcel to how the Dyson swarm would grow. However, this comes with a big risk. They'd suffer some of the same issues as the Dyson sphere. Collision avoidance. You're going to have something almost like a defense grid as well to wrap
Force
around
field.
that. So it keeps turrets, things like that. Make sure you got the ammo for that, right? I mean, there's, like I said, logistics. But solar damage, orbital congestion, you get too much things going, communication delays. We need to get a message back to Earth. How long is it going to take to get that message back to Earth?
Instantly, if you believe the Apollo mission.
Um, and all these like massive resource consumptions. Like we don't have the resources here on this planet to create a Dyson sphere. That's why we need to jump out to Mercury and start mining it and saying, you know what, I got to mine this, and hopefully the Mercurians aren't too mad about it. If they are, we'll get him some car insurance.
No, they're
Or
not
some-
getting any more DLC.
No more DLC. No, that's sad, isn't it? Sad. So let's talk about one of my favorite avenues, and this is what's known as the Stellar Engine. Now, the Stellar Engine was proposed by several different scientists, most notably Leonid Shakadov, and Matthew Kaplan, two of my favorite types of thrusters and or planet movers. Now, you may know from the Shakadov thruster and the Kaplan thruster, both of those last names. Now, this thing is a mega structure that is designed to move an entire solar system. Wild. Love it. Freak out. So how does this thing work, right? Well, what it does is it takes a star's energy and utilizes it to move the entire solar system. It uses the stars, planets, asteroids, and even Dyson swarms or infrastructure to move the entire solar system. My favorite, probably second favorite. I think the Kaplan thruster is probably my favorite. But the Shakadov thruster uses a massive curved mirror, or the solar statite, that balances gravitational pull and radiation pressure to reflect light right back to one side of the star. Now, the asymmetry to create net thrust, and thus slowly pushes the entire star through the galaxy. Imagine we just got a jet. We just somebody got to play Jimmy Buffett, Cheeseburger in Paradise, while we're cruising through the solar system. However, don't get excited just yet. So the Kaplan thruster, what it does is it uses and activates thrusters that collect hydrogen and helium from the sun using electromagnetic fields and a partial Dyson sphere. It then feeds this material into fusion jets to propel the sun. It acts sort of like a giant tugboat, if you've ever seen those out in the water. Now, one that I just learned about recently, very fascinating, was proposed by James Nicol, and it's called the Nicol-Dyson beam. Now, this uses a Dyson laser array to focus energy on one side of a star, and then it pushes it into the opposite direction. Fascinating. Now, these planets would stay in orbit as long as the orbits remain stable. The whole solar system is moving, and it's going to move super slow. You won't even see it move that much in your lifetime, if at all. It would take millions and millions of years to move an entire solar system, because sudden acceleration would destabilize the orbits and thus cause a galactic catastrophe. All you need is one planet to go off kilter, crash into another, and then that's a whole thing. But much like Dyson spheres, scale, stability, heat, materials, and time are serious problems to consider. Now, the time it would take to move a solar system using a stellar engine, you're looking at millions to hundreds of millions of years to accomplish. And this is due in large part to our sun's massive size. Some scientists say that the sun has about 5 billion years. This still gives stellar engines ample time to move our solar system, but we would never see it. Our kids would never see it. Generation after generation wouldn't see it, because it's moving at such an incremental pace that you wouldn't, there'd be generations that would talk about we once lived in another timeline.
Kind of like how the ancient Native American Hopi tribe had legends of a time before the moon existed in our skies.
Yeah, they have all sorts. They have the ant people when they talk about meeting the ant people.
The ant people are going to be back by 2030.
I can't wait. I'm excited. I'm going to call one bebop and we're going to hang out. We're going to drink Coors Lights. So let me ask you both this, because this is quite the confounding piece of equipment here, right? Where do you think this goes? If this was a possible thing, say they figured it out and we're all seeing the dawn of this giant piece of equipment, where do you think we go? Steven, where do you think we take our galaxy?
To a black hole.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, we go through a black hole into an alternate timeline.
Okay.
That's what CERN did in 2012. We'll just do it with the new technology this time.
Okay. Spider, where are you taking your galactic civilization? You'll get to live the billions of years it takes to get there. Where are you taking it?
Well, this is an interesting concept because this is a concept that I've seen in a few sci-fi novels that I've read, and if I could remember any of the titles, I would throw them out there for people to read right now. But the idea was it was kind of a mix between the Stellar Engine and the Dyson Sphere, in that they had was they called it a miniature sun. Usually it was artificial or something like that, but it was based off of a created sun or a star. And inside the big spherical thing, there's equipment that'll move the entire thing like a giant space station, very slowly, of course.
Correct.
But also inside, gravity is reversed. Instead of going in towards the center, it's out towards the interior of the sphere. So inside the sphere, on the inner skin, you've got buildings, you've got cities, you've got the entire civilization of people, and they all look up at the center of the sphere, and there's their sun. And it has automatic dimming, etc., so that everybody can have a night and day cycle. It's a fascinating idea. Is it ever going to work? Who knows? But if we're talking, again, purely theoreticals, that would be how you would transport a civilization. You would put them in there basically like an ark, which is another common sci-fi idea. And entire generations would live on the inside of this giant sphere, looking up at a sun, believing maybe we're on the surface of a planet. I mean, theoretically, we could be doing that now if we really wanted to get a little bit out there. It's a common alternative to the people who enjoy the flat Earth kind of thing. And even some of them with the dome. The dome that's the concept. There's something up in the there
dome.
And moving around.
The firmament.
Talking about the technology, I think if you built it correctly and you built it with the right navigation and it was massive enough, you could go through areas where maybe there was some light asteroid field, meteor showers or something like that without having too much of a problem. You would have to have automation to repair things, make sure nothing punctured it, make sure there was multiple layers. It wouldn't just simply be a one single sphere. It would probably be several spheres, one inside the other, with the artificial sun at the very center of all that with the civilization. So that way, if something does puncture, it's not going to go straight through and let everything out into space. But you could theoretically, if you had the possibility of making something like that and making a civilization, as long as the sun functioned, and as long as the navigation functioned, and as long as the automation functioned, you could go like that essentially forever, until the universe ran out of energy. And who knows, maybe past that, because you've got your own energy, as long as it doesn't run out, as long as it's self-perpetuating and it can continue to react indefinitely. The only danger to that, of course, is people getting tired of living in there or believing it's something different than what it is and fighting over things, and somebody shuts off the sun, and then you're all screwed. But apart from that little doom and gloom at the end, you could basically live there over hundreds of generations of people without any change.
Here's the thing. So what that does is, after a while, the sun's energy is going to be depleted. Now, my concern as we discuss this is, what does that do to the tidal forces that are locking our planet? What does that do to the moon cycle? What does that do to the orbits of the planets?
Chaos.
What does that do to the Earth? Understandably so, because let's jump into theorizing central. If we disassemble Mercury, right? Essentially, we're kind of throwing a little bit out of whack as it is to power this thing, right? After a while, the sun is going to get dimmer. There goes our ecological system, right? Everything is in a perfect balance and in a perfect way as it should be. If that goes off kilter by a notch, we end up in a mess. So I think, as one of the problems that people don't think about, is the incredible drain on the sun it would be, because we don't know what this does, right? Even if we make one and throw it up there and turn it on, we can say hypothetically what we think will happen. However, until we flip the switch to turn it on, we don't know what will happen. What if it's a bus and it blows up on us? Things like that are something to think about when you're dealing with something of a magnitude of a solar system mover. Essentially, a whole thing that just picks up a solar system and then takes a very, very long time to get to your house, like a package that you need, that you would love to have. But it's UPS and they take forever. I'm kidding. So I think that puts us in a very interesting situation. How do we solve the resource problem? Spider, how do we solve that resource problem? Tell me right now. What's your plan? You're fired. Steven, what's your
automation.
plan? You're fired. You're fired. No, I think automation is one of those things. What else?
Automation, nanotechnology.
There you go.
A lot of things that you can direct into space, and you have to have a way to identify planets and moons and just objects out there that aren't already established with some form of life, so you can take them apart. Because going to another planet and saying, oh, this planet has life, let's crush it anyway, that kind of makes you not the best civilization in the world. It doesn't mean somebody won't do it.
Already done that?
But
many times?
Regardless of any sort of fantasies we may have,
I was talking about the Native Americans.
Right, and I was talking about the current topic, so let's stick to that while we can. If I could get back on my train of thought, you would need to identify the planets where there's no threat to breaking down an ecosystem or an ecology that's already in existence, and then you can just, like, basically a big rocket space. Anything that's like the moon, anything like that.
Because you would use asteroids, comets, things like that to basically mine off of, because that is part and parcel of living in a solar system. You're going to have strays like that. So then I think a good point would be to make something that sort of rears those more towards us so they could be disassembled. And, nanobot, that was a good point. You have little, you shoot little missiles or however, where the nanobots can just basically mine that entire piece of rock. So I like that concept. I think that concept sits well. I think that is a great way to solve a resource problem. And you're going to make your solar system safer because you're not going to have to worry about these things crashing into stuff. So I think you make a good point.
As long as you also control the local space junk that inevitably you might build up. Because we've got that problem now. We've got the issue with junk coming down different places. Occasionally you still read a news story of somebody's house getting hit by something.
Of course. Yes, of course.
The European Space Network or the NASA or something just come down and just smash through somebody's home because it got left behind as a booster and it was supposed to burn up and it didn't. So we have to be a little bit more responsible in how we make sure, is it going to burn up in the atmosphere for real, or is it going to still be sizable and knock somebody on the head? So if we can deal with that, even maybe recycle some of that stuff with the same technology, use the nanotechnology, the automation to recycle anything that might fail while it's out there and repurpose it towards continuing to the goal that you're trying to accomplish.
So I do like what you're saying. I think that is a very viable solution in terms of how to extract the materials you need and thus burn away the waste. I think too, depending on what you make those nanobots out of, if they have good space decay, because if something happens to them and let's say they're just floating around, you get one of those in any form of circuitry, you're going to be doing a little bit of damage, possibly a lot of damage. So that's a very good point. I want to move forward to the black hole bomb because this is something that I found 1000% fascinating. This idea was theoretically pitched, or it was pitched theoretically in the 1970s. Now, the black hole bomb works by wrapping a rotating black hole in mirrors. What this does is then these mirrors that start to control the light or electromagnetic waves that go back and forth in a black hole due to the spin. It collects these and bounces them back and forth until it amplifies the energy. And once that energy reaches a point called super radiance, it would cause an explosive release of cosmic energy. Or if you could collect it, a great source of energy. Now, let me sidetrack here and say that super radiance is in fact defined as a quantum phenomenon where a group of emitters, such as excited atoms, interact collectively with a shared light field, causing them to emit light together as a single, high intensity, coherent pulse rather than decaying independently. Now, how does this black hole bomb work? Well, there's a region just outside of this black hole, outside of their event horizon, that's called the ergosphere. If a wave of light enters this ergosphere, it can steal rotational energy from the black hole and emerge stronger than it previously was. It is then that a reflective mirror surrounds said black hole and amplifies these waves in creating a feedback loop. This leads to an increase in energy trapped in these mirrors until it violently explodes or is harnessed by a colossal power station. So a way to bring the energy in, which is another part of the logistics aspect. Now, scientists use the term mirrors, but they mean in terms of like plasma environments, massive quantum fields, gravitational trapping, and curved space-time effects. So not just like your grandmother's mirror. Like, hey, grandma, we're going to go use your mirror and bounce some, energy waves off a black hole later. Oh, you kids be careful. Those things explode, Bit old-fashioned family fun. However, it also may allow us to detect axion-like particles, ultralight bosons, and dark matter candidates. Now, I do want to say, too, that is not a bomb in the sense that everybody thinks it is. It's not a runaway exponential detonation. In this case, it refers to the energy extraction that would saturate the black hole spin decreases and the instability just stops. So it's not like a bomb that you would normally see. So what do you think so far of this? Steven, go ahead. What do you think?
Sounds like an energy bomb, like you would just use the frequency to make everything stop working, pretty much. Kind of like an EMP almost.
Okay. Spider, what are your thoughts on this pretty sweet idea of a thing that probably we shouldn't do, but we should?
It's interesting. Again, we're imagining a perfect world where we know exactly how black holes function and we're not going to make any mistakes and all that good stuff.
Yes, obviously.
Which makes it difficult kind of to take it as believability, because knowing black holes, knowing how unpredictable they are, it's kind of like,
my friend,
I think anything around that's a bad idea.
My friend, it's a hypothesis. You don't have to bring the real world into this. This is a fun show.
I do. I have to be the one to keep it
your answer
right here on the ground on the planet.
You don't have to. All right, you don't. Give me your answer, sir. Quit beating around the bush.
I'm the logical one. I got to.
You can be, but also suspend that for 2 seconds. All right. Obviously, it doesn't exist.
Well, let me drink a little bit more. Maybe we'll see.
But might get smarter.
Might get more theoretical.
Yes.
It is interesting. And there are a lot of different other theoretical things that we've done with black holes that, well, theoretically, again, with black holes that you could accomplish with similar technology. It's been theorized that in various media that you could use a black hole to move forward or backwards in time or in space. Some people have used the slingshot theory, where you can slingshot yourself around into the future or into the past.
Right.
And similarly, anything that's going to do anything like that is going to give off a ton of energy. You could theoretically, if you could make sure whatever you were sending isn't actually going to go through time, it's just going to slingshot around and create a big, massive wave of energy that you could collect. You could just send things orbiting around and just keep slingshotting them and then just collect all the energy in the equivalent of solar nets and things of that nature. It's one of the base technologies that I think we haven't applied to any of these things so far that we talked about last week in Steven's episode, was fields.
Right.
Because I think fields and the understanding of fields, just like in that episode, are going to be very important.
Well, I did bring
in
up the
containing all
quantum
this kind of stuff.
field in terms
Right.
of
We didn't
the mirror
expand on it at
using.
all.
No,
so,
but we did bring it up. So there is that.
right. And that's I think another interesting thing that is going to be kind of fundamental to all of this. It's the understanding of a type of field that you can use for containment, whether on a quantum level or otherwise, to collect these particles, to transport the particles, to do different things with them. So again, theoretically, if we were able to do anything that could collect the energy to begin with, we would also be able to create some kind of a field that would be able to contain it from that point on. And then you could apply that to the Dyson sphere to keep the star in check from being out of control, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
So it's interesting. I had not heard this one before. It doesn't sound like something too far out of the imagination. I hadn't heard the term, though, so it is kind of new to me, and so it is very interesting.
So they actually did a test. They did a test on how this would work, and they said they figured it out. But once again, it's a test. You don't have a real black hole. Some of the problems behind this, too, are that perfect mirrors don't exist, especially around black holes.
It causes Red would beg to disagree.
There's not. And then energy losses via radiation. So you're going to have energy expanding, but that's radiation. So the energy is going to dissipate and go into other places. Instability saturation causing the black hole to slow down. As you're pulling the energy, it no longer has enough power to be able to keep the spin going. And of course, extreme engineering incidents such as tidal forces, intense radiation, and relativistic environments are all things that are a problem dealing with this black hole bomb. Now, I think, too, it's fair to mention some of these energy collectors of how they would work with this. So, of course, Spider touched on this with Dyson spheres, but Dyson swarms. Now, those would surround the black hole and thus absorb X-rays, gamma rays, synchrotron radiation, jet emissions, and thermal radiation from accretion disks. Now, we also have the relativistic photovoltaic collectors. Now, what these do is they use high-powered photovoltaics, and they pair production energy converters and exonic quantum absorbers to be used to pull energy from the black hole itself. Another one, and I'm sure that ICP would appreciate this, is the magnetic energy extraction systems. You're probably wondering, how does that work? Well, let me tell you how that works. So the Blanford-Zanjak process allows rotational energy to be extracted electromagnetically. Spider's like, what's going on with all these words? We have another fine one, the accretion disk harvesting. What an accretion disk is, it's matter that falls into a black hole that heats up fast and thus creates accretion disks, which are the brightest things in the universe. A civilization might be able to place collectors around the disk to absorb the emitted energy. Another collector, which there's a couple of these I found to be kind of fascinating, is the Penrose process. Now, this brings into something I think that we didn't touch on, and that's particle physics. I think particle physics are going to be a very intense point to all of this, because they enter the ergosphere, and then that particle falls inward but escapes with extra energy. And by using a projectile or a particle trajectory collector, one could harness the energy of escaping particles. I think that's a very viable option. I still think it's one of the harder ones to pull off. Now, for some just mechanics out there, for the mechanic aspect, are jet collectors. Now, some spinning black holes emit relativistic jets that extend light years into space. A collector, which would be a magnetic induction array, plasma decelerators, beam absorbers, and gigantic heat waves, could pull in those jets to refine into energy. However, jets are highly, highly explosive. So that would be another problem. And finally, the Hawking radiation collectors, or tiny black holes. Now, these are radiation absorbers, heat exchangers, and pair production collectors that could be used as mini black holes and thus pull in the energy and become compact power plants. So, given this all this craziness, right? Because this is it's a lot to take in. I think it's a lot to understand. I think it's a lot of theoretical physics at work, but I think those theoretical physics are important. Um, Having known what you've not known before but know now, Stephen, what do you think about black hole bomb? Do you think that's something that's a feasible aspect, or do you think that we're way off to get that crack-a-lacking?
I think we're actually very close to it, and I think it's very dangerous because I've seen some reports that say we're already working on like making small simulated black holes in laboratories. So, you don't want to go messing with black holes. That's just asking to destroy the whole planet.
Okay. Spider, your thoughts? Having learned about what this is, what are your thoughts on that?
It is, again, it's very interesting. It's potentially something that could really solve a number of different energy related crises that we have both here on the planet and getting further out into space. And at least within the last 10 years, China has been experimenting with miniature black holes in laboratories. I saw multiple articles of that over the years. As far as we're aware, none of them have escaped because we're all still here, but maybe we're already in the black hole and we just don't know it.
I like that one.
But I think there has to be a lot of safety measures put into place. And to go quickly back to the political discussion, in a perfect universe, you wouldn't have to worry about that because everyone would see the need, like, hey, the planet needs energy.
Agreed.
You need energy to get into space. It's not a big deal. But as we are now, again, getting back grounded a little bit into reality, we're in the United States, we're not friends with China, as far as we're told. We're friends on some level, but not on other levels.
Right.
And if they ever decided, hey, you know what? We don't care about the consequences. We're going to toss a black hole at the United States because they're pissing us off today.
Okay.
And that could theoretically happen, just like nuclear war in the past,
cool
the
with
Cold
it.
War, things like that. It's any person who's having a disagreement with another nation could decide, you know what? We've got this thing. I think
You're
we've
not
got it
wrong.
under control. It's very
Nope.
destructive. If it destroys them, we'll then go in and contain it afterwards. And maybe they can, maybe they can't. So, again, I would hope that for any of this technology to be developed, we would become a more unified planet on some level. I don't know how possible that is right now, but if we're looking at a perfect universe, it would be possible again if we were all on the same page. So, and I would look forward to that. I would be very interested to see the epilogue of all of these technologies if everyone was on the same page and everyone was concerned about the safety of the rest of the planet. Whether that's going to happen or not, who knows? But that would be the hope.
I think that if you put your brain in a robot body, I think you might be onto something, my good sir. I'm gonna have my brain in a gorilla, but with the strength of 5 gorillas. You know what I mean? So that's gonna be me. Anyways, not the point of the conversation. Gentlemen, thank you for another awesome episode of this Uncanny Earth, the show that goes wherever we want it to go. We talked about Dyson spheres, stellar engines, and black hole bombs, and these are all examples of how we could be using the cosmic energy to our advantage and enable us to move out into the universe and explore the greater creation that we do not know. And while there are many problems and situations that do rise up, we are human beings and we are great at breaking our limitations. And while we may never see these in our lifetimes, it is still wise to seek out these concepts, to understand them, because there might be a future where that sort of information is 100% needed. Thank you, everyone, for another exciting episode of this Uncanny Earth. We all appreciate you. We love you guys. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Go outside and touch some grass or something.
Quick apology to Steven for yelling at him. My bad.
Oh, no, you're fine.
I just wanted to publicly say that so that people aren't, well, I am a jerk, but
Yeah, he is a
But-
jerk. All right, we're going. We're done. Are you two lovers quarrel done? We're out. Have a good night, everybody. Peace.